My name is Bruce Parkman, and with my family, my wife Perry, my daughters Allie and Andy, we are the founders of the Parkman Foundation for Adolescent Concussive Trauma. Before we go into our mission, let me tell you a story. It's hard to hear, but we tell it every day because you don't want to go through what we're going through, and what we're getting ready to talk about is 100% preventable. Our journey started on September 26th of 2020, when our son posted a video saying that he was going to end his life, that he had been suffered from major depression, schizophrenia, all which were unknown to us. And we frantically searched for him for over a day and a half. Over 100 people went looking for him until he was found the next day. Our son had run off a 100-foot rock to his death, leaving us with many, many questions and no answers. Through the grace of God, our CT, the coroner that handled our son's autopsy, Mac, had one of the few guys in the country that took a class on chronic traumatic encephalopathy and asked me a question about, did my son have concussions? I responded, yeah, he had three different sports seasons. And he said, well, you might want to check into that. And thus began a journey of talking to people, learning about what CTE was, does it affect kids? And again, through the grace of God, our son ended up at the Boston University Brain Bank, managed by the Concussion Legacy Foundation, with all the NFL players up there. And we began to dig into what happened to our son. Why was a boy who was loved beyond anything? He was, with our daughters, the light of our life. He was a generous, warm, handsome man. 1,000 people showed up to his service. He was a follower of our Lord. He went to a private Christian school. We had beach vacations, ski vacations. He traveled the world with me to the pyramids in Egypt and Australia and New Zealand. I mean, he lived, he was loved. Why wasn't he here? And as we begin to dig, we began to find out that he was suffering from mental illness that was caused by brain damage. That was a result of starting contact sports too early. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear this, but it is the truth. And we have the research, the science, and the logic to support our position that we must wait until kids' brains are ready to handle the trauma of contact sports. And that is our mission, to inform and educate parents, primarily parents, about the risks that their child faces when they are pushed or not pushed, or when they start or get involved with contact sports during an age period when their brain is developing. Now, when we talk, or as the podcast series unwinds, and we start talking about sub-concussive trauma, concussive trauma in the brain, what is important to understand for all of us is that our kids' brains are developing. And it's just logical. From the ages of 3 to 13, a kid's brain is going through unbelievable, complex, and dynamic developmental processes that, when are impacted or affected by concussive trauma, which is the hard hits that somebody takes, we're all aware of that, and subconcussive trauma, which are the little dings that every kid takes every day in a football practice, in a football game, when he heads a soccer ball, when he makes a tackle in rugby, when he hits somebody in hockey. The combination of those two effects on the brain keeps the brain inflamed and releases a lot of processes and proteins that critically impact these developmental processes that end up damaging the brain to a point where mental illness is a result. Our son started playing sports at the age of 6. And he wanted to wrestle. I'm a retired Green Beret Sergeant Major. I said, yeah, let's go. Then he wanted to play football. No problem, man. Let's do this. And he skied and snowboarded with me, from March until the snow ended. So when we look at the period of his sub-concussive and concussive lifestyle, it's not the concussions that took our son away. It was his lifestyle. He started football in July, ended in November. Wrestling started in November, went to March. Then he went snowboarding and ended when the snow hit. He had a month and a half off a year to rest his brain. And it's just too much. Our son is not here, and many children are no longer here, and adults are no longer here because we as parents love our children. We'll do anything for them, but we have to be cognizant of the risks involved, and we are not. When it comes down to drinking and driving, and doing drugs, and having premarital sex, or whatever it is, what do we tell our children? No. But when a kid comes to us, is 5 years old, and says, "Hey, Dad, can I play football and put on some pads at the age of 5 and 6? What do we as a society say? Yes. Our country leads the world in contact sports. We have more children playing contact sports than any other country in the world. Well, guess what? We also have the highest rate of mental illness in the child population of any other country in the world. Could it be that the two might be correlated at some small percentage of the population? Our answer is yes. I mean, take a look at what is going on with NFL athletes that take their lives. Right now, it's like, oh, ho-hum, another rich athlete is gone. No, look at when that athlete started playing, when they were children. And it continued until they were an adult or a young adult. Many, many professional athletes right now are suffering from mental illness. And a lot of them ended up in the brain bank at Boston University. So it's imperative that we as parents, as society, take a look at the aggregate concussive and subconcussive lifestyle of our kids. I mean, look at this. In the 1970s, when I was a young man, I never played ball. I mean, I joined the Army at 112 pounds. But you could only play football for one season. You were good, okay? But now you can play football for the town. You can play football for your school. You can play on travel teams. You can play hockey year round. And we have taken a sport and made it a lifestyle. Or if you combine it like my son did with football and wrestling and then snowboarding, the trauma is continuous. The inflammation is continuous. The brain doesn't heal. The brain hurts itself. And our children end up being mentally ill. So we feel here at the foundation that a time to educate and inform and change is coming. Take a look at the 70s. We go back. How many people remember their mom and dad smoking cigarettes, kids all hanging out in the back of cars, with no seat belts? We didn't wear helmets when we biked. We didn't wear helmets when we skied. And yet we now have to wear helmets. Now we have to wear seatbelts. Why? Because we as a society understand the risks now and what we're doing to our children. So the time has come for us as a society to look at what we are doing to our children when we put them in pads at a young age. And what we do when their brains, as they're developing, are exposed to concussive and subconcussive trauma. Because I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, the result is mental illness. Now, don't think that I am, or our foundation is anti-sports or, anti-football, anything like that. I am a retired Green Beret Sergeant Major. I have served in 4 combat zones and contingency zones, 2 as a soldier and 2 as a civilian. I did both invasions. I am a semi-pro rugby player. I still play rugby to this day, and I love smacking another dude. But I am 59 years old. My son died at 17. I am asking that you listen to me and my family, because you don't want to be here. You need to learn and understand that good parents make mistakes when they don't know what they're doing. We made a terrible mistake. If my son would have picked one other sport or not played one sport, he'd be here. So the message is just wait. Let your kids be kids. Let them enjoy life. As a child, when it comes time to be a man, and I've made boys into men, I spent my life doing it as a Green Beret, the time will be there. Tom Brady didn't pick up a football till he was a freshman. I think he turned out pretty good. And the science and research is showing us that the age of 14 is when the brain is resilient enough to handle trauma. But even then, you have to manage it. One football season, no back-to-back. The brain doesn't stop developing till your child is 25. There is so much for us to pass on to you. And we encourage you to please attend our podcast. We're going to have some of the greatest guests, not experts on brains, experts on sports, experts on concussions, coming to us to talk about what we need to do to change this, change our societal look at contact sports in children. There's nothing wrong with contact sports. Contact sports are great. It's America, but not for kids. And contact sports and brain damage and mental illness are tied together. So join us as we learn. And we look forward to hearing from you, to hearing your ideas and your comments on what we're doing as a foundation, because now is the time for change. Our kids are hurting, and we have to put an end to it. And we will. Thank you very much for listening. We look forward to your attendance at our podcast. We are not looking for donations. We are not looking for money. We are simply looking to spread awareness. Thank you so much, and God bless.